Well, I'm back on day 5 without any food, fasting. I've got 5 tips for fasting success, and I've got a mental Qigong technique for connecting with the tien. Today, I woke up and I lost 12.8 pounds, and now it's day 5, so from day 1, that's 4 days, almost 13 pounds. So that's definitely an encouraging way to wake up. I'm feeling great. I did my morning Qigong session, and I was feeling a new intensity. This intensity is something that I can only relate to the experience of skydiving or taking a high dose of magic mushrooms. Just being full of energy, about as much as I could take, and in a good way. Feeling very good. Just, with Qigong, we challenge ourselves and we continue to expand our capacity to experience greater energy. And at this point, on day 5, it's starting to feel like a distant memory since I ate anything. The desire to eat just isn't there. I'm not really thinking about eating or anything like that. It's just gotten into a nice little zone, feeling pretty mellow, feeling pretty relaxed, just feeling good, feeling alive, feeling ready to do stuff, but at the same time just kind of doing things in a relaxed, happy way. A lot of the mental programs and extra thoughts and extra little actions that normally can be there just aren't there, just intensely focused on what I'm doing. I've prepared an entire blog post for each of these days, so if you want to read more detail about what's happening, I've got my daily routine, what I'm doing, and that actually changes a little bit throughout the week. You can read that on the blog post associated with this. But at this point, if you've gone 5 days without any food, you could easily go 7 or 11 or longer, because now that we've gone through these first initial stages of changes, although it will still change over time, the changes happen more slowly. Kind of in that zone that I could just ride this out. And once you have the capacity to go 5 days, going longer really just becomes a mental decision and a mental process for you to follow. Now, since I've been doing many fasts, I've been fasting for a couple days here and there. I've been fasting for 5 or 10 days several times. I've done a 14-day fast. It's been a while since I did a 21-day fast. Back on Maui when I was a monk, I did a 21-day fast a few years ago. So there's a few things that I've realized just by paying attention to how I experience the fast that I believe will be helpful for you. So my first tip for fasting success is that you don't want to plan your next meal. Okay? So it's better if you just decide that, hey, I'm going to fast for a certain period of time. Now that could be a fixed period of time, like I'm doing a 21-day fast. So I've actually set the time, 21 days in the future. Or you could just say, I'm going to fast until I decide not to. But to keep that decision and honor that decision, you really want to wait until you're done with the fast before you start planning your meal. So if you see something on TV that looks like something you might want to eat, or if you see something that somebody else around you has prepared and they're eating, if you have the thought of, ooh, that's something that I might be interested in eating at some point, if you're trying to stick to your fast, I know that that's probably not right now that you want to eat that, if you've gotten to this level. But at the same time, what can cause you to maybe experience some difficulty in extending your fast as long as you'd like to is if you see that food and you say, okay, well, the day I end my fast, I'm going to make this food, or the next day. If you set that date in the future and then you go online and look at some recipes and start planning it in your mind, what you're doing is activating that part of your mind. By imagining that you're preparing that, you're actually sort of telling yourself to get ready to eat. And if that time is a few days in the future and you start thinking about it now, then what you're doing is waking up your habit and your body's desire to eat that food. So be very careful in how you think about it. Which brings me to fasting tip number 2, which is related to this. But so on the one hand, if you see the food that you'd be interested in eating at some point in the future, and you say, wow, like I'm interested in that at some point, I'll have it later. The technique is just to postpone it till after the fast. Just say later. Don't pick a date. Don't pick a time. Just trust that, okay, when I'm done this fast, I'm going to break the fast a certain way. I'm going to break that. If you go more than 5 days without eating, you're going to break the fast more gently. You're not just going to eat a big meal. You're going to phase into it. On day 21, I'll show you that exact process, how to break different lengths of fast. So the idea is just to say, well, you know what? I've eaten that food already plenty in my life, and this fast is good for my health. It's going to help me live longer. I'm going to be able to enjoy that in the future when the time is right. So, once the fast is broken and I'm in that mode again of making choices and deciding to eat things, I can have that later. Just don't set the time. Now you've satisfied your mind of knowing that you're not going to live the rest of your life without that food, and you know that you can have it later. So later, or someday, or eventually I might have that. That's just a good way to kind of get rid of this inner resistance. Now, another thing that comes up during fasting is, inevitably, you're going to smell some kind of food. A neighbor, your spouse, your kids, your parents, they might be eating something, cooking something. You might drive by a restaurant, and you're going to smell some food. Now, your senses of smell are heightened during this period because that's just your body's natural response is heightened senses. So you're going to smell it more intensely. Now, we're just so used to smelling something good, and we say, wow, I should eat that. But you can actually practice unlinking your mind with the smell of food and the desire to eat. So the next time you smell some food, on the one hand, if it smells good, just experience the smell and the joy of that smell and say, wow, that smells really good. But just don't take it to that next step of, oh, I want to eat that, and I want to eat that soon. Just enjoy the smell, appreciate the aroma, and you know what? That can really be a pleasant sensation on its own to acknowledge, oh, this smells good. A lot of people fasting might be afraid to have that smell because they're afraid it's going to trigger their appetite. But you can actually practice smelling the good smell and just not mentally turning that into an impulse to eat. On the other hand, your senses are exaggerated. Your senses are more sensitive. So things that you normally might like to eat, when you smell them on a fast, there's a good chance it'll smell too strong. And then automatically you're safe because it might just smell kind of, oh, that's too intense. I don't even know if I could eat that. It might actually kind of turn you off. So that's not a bad thing. And the next fasting tip number 4, is just sort of a meditation, something you can practice thinking about. And the idea is to say to yourself, well, what do I really need outside myself? Do I really need anything outside myself? And question that. So the idea is I don't need anything outside myself. And now you might be tempted to say, well, no, eventually I need food. And eventually I need something else. I can't just be just me and be just okay. You're missing the point if you rationalize it that way. The idea here is to just first assess right now, right in this moment. Okay, I'm not drinking any water. I'm not eating any food. Do I need any of that? Well, so start with this moment and say, you know what, right now I'm fine. I'm not eating anything, I'm not drinking anything. I'm just me being here, and I'm okay. So once you realize that, ask yourself that question. See if that's really true. If you're sitting there and nothing bad's happening, you might have a small headache, a little bit of discomfort, but you're still okay. Then you realize, okay, I'm okay right now. Well, what about the next 5 minutes? Is anything really going to change? You quickly realize, well, if I'm okay now, in the next 5 minutes, I'm probably going to continue to be okay without any external stuff. And then you could stretch it further. Like, for the next hour or two, I'm probably going to be okay. For the next several hours, I'm probably going to be okay. You could stretch that in your mind as far as you need to. But the idea is you don't really need anything external. This is a helpful thing for fasting, to just be aware of the fact that, for the next while, and that could be several days, It starts off with several minutes, but then several hours, several days, even several weeks, or even possibly several months. You might just be okay, and you could just be curious enough to see how far you could continue being okay without anything external, not needing anything external. Now, on the flip side of it, it's the same idea, but saying it a different way actually helps you to think about that a different way. And like they go together. But the fifth tip for fasting success is I have everything I need within me. So when you think about one of these tips, they're definitely related. They go together. But just realize I have within me the power to choose what's right for me, the power to feel my body, and as long as I continue to feel okay, then I'm okay. And this is a process. I didn't wake up one day and just say I'm going to fast for 21 days. I actually started this by doing Qigong, noticed that it was helping me with my energy, got me to pay attention to my body, and then I just said, okay, I'm just going to wait until I'm hungry to eat. And then it started lasting hours and days. I mean, the first few fasts, I wasn't even aware that I was fasting on purpose. I was just waiting till I was hungry to eat. Then later, as I learned more about fasting, I sort of became a little more intentional with the fasting process. That came from within me. Then I educated myself to learn more about, okay, what to expect, and is this going to be okay? But literally just listening to my body. I recommend the same to you. If it feels good, you're going to come to a point where you reach your boundary. You never went one day without eating. Well, it might start with just kind of skipping one meal and see how you feel. And then that might grow to you end up finally making one day without food. You wake up the next day and you might eat something right away. But you've expanded your belief and your capacity to before thinking you probably couldn't go a day without food. So now you made that choice. You lasted a whole day. Well, that process just continues to where now I can go weeks without food because, I know that I'll be okay, and my body actually feels okay doing that because I've practiced it enough. Along the way, there were times where after 3 days I gave up. After 5 days, I said, that's enough. I've broken fast early because there were times where my body sent the signal like, dude, you need to eat. And when it was serious enough, I would listen to it. So I'm feeling good in this process. I've worked up to it. I recommend the same for you. At the same time, be curious enough to see how far this process can go for you and start in gradual, incremental steps. That's what the process outlined in the Qigong for Weight Loss book talks about. It's not just saying I'm going to be a hero and fast for 10 days, starting gradually. It really is just a process to learn what you can do with your mind and how much of our mind is just we're eating because it's a habit, because we have an emotional need, because we're taught that we need to eat 3 times a day. We're just challenging those beliefs and seeing what's really necessary. People in spiritual traditions have been fasting for thousands of years. In nature, animals, if they start to feel like they're sick, they won't eat to heal themselves. So there's value in this, and just to see what your mind can actually do. So that brings us to the next step of the Qigong lesson for today. Now, when many people start to learn about Qigong, and if you're just learning about this just to begin with, you may think that Qigong is basically just like yoga or Tai Chi. It's just physical movements, and that's all there is to it. There's actually more about Qigong of focusing the mind. It's actually more of a meditation than it is of a physical action. Now, it's combining the power of the mind with the actions of the body so that you have a harmonious connection where the brain and the heart and the whole body are working together. So that's important. But at the same time, the mind, you can do Qigong without moving your body at all. It can be purely mental. Now, for 25 years, I've been meditating. And for a long time, I tried to do it all in my mind. And I didn't really care about the body. I didn't try to get the body to do anything. Qigong has been transformative for me because it's allowed me to actually find the value in the physical body and connect it to the mind so they're working together. And the power is just more tremendous. Now, it's also good practice to train your mind in different ways. So A lot of the physical things are working on your mental discipline, but you could be in the hospital. You could have no arms. And you could, if all you knew was, okay, send energy to the tien with my fingers, what if you don't have fingers? Well, you can mentally send that energy. Now, it's going to take some practice. So today, I've got a way to connect with your tien as a mental exercise. So what we're going to do in this technique is you're not going to move your body at all. So pick a position. You can do the Qigong standing posture, straighten your back, or you can do a sitting posture, or you can be in any position you like. Just find a place where you can have a few minutes of quiet, uninterrupted time to yourself, where you can be still. It's good to close your eyes to help you concentrate, but it could also be done with your eyes open if you feel more comfortable doing that, or if you need to do that. So the technique is pretty simple. I'm going to use my fingers to demonstrate, but realize in this technique you do not actually move your fingers. So the first thing you do is to locate the tien in your mind. It's about 2 inches below your belly button and 2 inches inside your body. So the first thing is to imagine a little pea-sized point or a little BB-sized point, 2 inches inside the body, 2 inches below your belly button. And if you want, you can imagine that glowing with energy. But right now, we're just trying to make the connection of finding that point in our bodies. If you can't feel it, just imagine that there's a point at that approximate place. Now, as you send energy to it, you'll start to feel where it actually is, so it's not important to get it perfectly right. If you're in the general area, you're close enough for it to work. The next step, after you can locate that point in your mind, or at least imagine it's there, even if you can't really feel it or can't really detect it, just kind of trust that, okay, I'm thinking about a place that's near that area. Don't worry if it's not perfect. The next step is, in your mind, with your fingers of your dominant hand. If you're right-handed, use the right hand. If you're left-handed, use your left hand. Take the index finger and the thumb, and you want to take them in your mind, kind of, you don't even need the hand or the arm, you just need the fingertips in your mind to reach in there, to be inside there, and to just gently squeeze the tien. Give it a little pressure, just give it a squeeze, and then pull it back about 1 inch. You know, we used our fingers pointing a beam of energy in. So in that same direction, towards your spine, deeper into your body, take that little, those 2 fingers, like just squeeze it gently, not hard, and pull it in about 1 inch. Pull it back as if it were a slingshot. So you're pulling it back with the visualization, with the understanding that, okay, if I'm pulling it back, if I let go, it's just going to snap back, you know, just kind of go back to where it was. So you're pulling it back 1 inch, and then you're trying to just imagine that little bit of pressure and imagine it happening at that spot. You know, you got the fingers in there pulling back, and just feeling that little bit of pressure pulling back on the tien. Do this for a few minutes whenever you can. Do it a few times a day. What you're doing by doing this is it's practice. You're connecting your mind with your tien. And then as your mind gets stronger and you start to learn other techniques, you'll actually be able to mentally direct energy to your tien. But before you can direct energy to it, you need to have a good feeling of where it's at. And this little bit of practice, although it may seem, you know, like you're not doing much, it's very important because it's helping you connect to the tien. Now, this whole tien thing, when you're in the beginning stages, you may be in a rush to say, well, he talked about the Shenji Palace in the center of the brain, or he talked about you know, the heart center, and then there's all these other cool stuff in Qigong. That will come, but the thing to focus on right now is the tien it's the center of your energy body, so that's always going to be important. And in the beginning stages, you know, it's just good to, if you store energy in your tien, it's your battery for your body. And then what will happen is if you fill it up enough and you start to fill it to the point where it's full and it's overflowing, and just like water boils, it'll boil and steam will come up and fill the heart center and it will raise. Now the techniques are different also in the beginning. It's really just enough just to focus on the tien. We're going to store up lots of energy there. And then, you know, if our energy battery is full, it knows what to do. It's going to distribute a better flow of qi through the body, and Then, once we have all this energy, we'll be able to use different techniques to direct that energy for different purposes of healing and different intentions. So it's really a good start for anyone who's getting into Qigong to just, we're going to work on the tien. I mentioned it in day number 1, day number 4, and now day number 5. So 3 of the first 5 days, this was important enough to make it the main thing. So it is that important. Well, what's also interesting and important and exciting for me is I'm making these videos. I really want to hear about your experience with this. Have you tried this stuff yet? Have you gotten any results? Or does this just sound too out there to be true? Well, I'd love to get to know you through the comments. Leave a comment below. Let me know about any issues you're having, questions you're having. I mean, I've got so much information I want to share. I'd be happy to help you with your question. I can't address any questions that anyone would have in a video, but I can answer your comments. And if you're reading this on the blog, there's a comment section. Feel free to leave your input there. And I read and respond to every comment that's humanly possible. And I'd love to see you there. See you tomorrow for day 6. How La.